As photographers, should we work for free? It's a tough question. I think I would start with that old adage that sex work is work. Why? Because we're all getting pimped for the dollar, right? So the question is, should you do work at a free rate, at a reduced rate? If it helps you, yeah. The weird paradigm of being an artist is you have to have the work for you to do the work. Once again, you have to have the work for you to do the work. But sometimes you can't get access to it. So how are you supposed to do it if you haven't done it before? I'll give you an example. First billboard shoot I ever did, for a while, some clients would come talking to my agent, asking about my work, and saying, we like it, but like, has he run a set with 30 people before? How is he going to be able to manage it? The tricky part about that is, when would I have been able to do it if I haven't given the opportunity? Now, this is a situation you probably find yourself in now or soon, where you think, I can shoot that if somebody gives me the chance, right? And so it's a tricky thing. And what I wanted to talk to you about is the idea of scaling. Scaling is you make a business model based on one thing you do well. A product, a car, a phone, dial-up internet if you're AOL. And then over time, as you do better, you scale your business to do more and more things. You grow over time. But for artists, the expectation is not that. The expectation is that you will arrive immediately, you're ready, you're hulked out. But that's not really fair, is it? Right? The idea of scaling is, hey, you're actually doing okay. Maybe not financially, but your work is growing. And as you grow, you're building tools and a mindset to be able to have a sustainable career. Some people are excited, they want to be on Instagram, they want to be on TikTok, whatever, show off and hop out. But not you. You want to be able to express yourself through your art and get paid for it. And I'll tell you, every single year I've been working full-time, I've made more money than last year. And every year my portfolio has shifted because I've been scaling. But it started way before I started working professionally. I started as a photographer in high school, taking photos for fun for yearbooks I'd make with my friends. And then in college, I took a black and white film class. I worked at the student paper. And I think that's my first kind of example I want to give you for scaling. So if you're here, you know that I've worked with CNN and Lululemon and Apple and a bunch of clients. But let's focus on those three. Lululemon, the athleisure for the quasi-wealthy. I think I'm wearing it right now, so no shade to them at all. But Lululemon, the project I did, I photographed athletes around New York City for them, and these images are going in store and on these athletes' social media. So thousands of people are going to see them every day as they're shopping. And they're supposed to embody the Lululemon, like that sweat life they have, but also still look comfortable, still look somewhat effortless. How did I get that job? I got that job because someone I've worked with before recommended me to the person who's hiring that. And that's how a lot of this goes. But I also had a portfolio for that. So how did I get it? I did a lot of athlete work in college, actually. I went to the University of Florida. We've had great athletes like Bradley Beal, Tim Tebow, Abby Wambach. And one cool thing about being there was I started to get access. So first it started like, I want to shoot football games. Then I realized, well, football games are like hours and hours and hours. And I don't have time for all that. Then I wanted to shoot basketball games. But before I could do that, the photo editor of the paper said, I need you to shoot women's basketball. I need you to shoot volleyball. I need you to shoot a bunch of sports to show me that you can stop motion. So that was the beginning of my scaling. I had to start by capturing rugby and high school football. And then go on to softball, go on to soccer, and try a bunch of different sports, not only to see what I liked, but to start to practice and get my style together. So by the time I was getting photos that could end up being used all over the place during the men's Final Four, I had already kind of gotten used to shooting athletes. And it's different because it's like a wedding, but even more terrifying. You have one moment to get something, you have to track it with autofocus, you have to grab it. So then from there, when we did features about athletes, I got to take portraits of them, spend time with them, kind of understand like flattering poses that looked strong, masculine, feminine, were good for certain sports. Whatever worked for that person based on how you read them. Also, gender is a construct. And then so that scaled from there into all sorts of portraits. But when I got to New York, I assisted this photographer. His name is Koti Tar. Link is somewhere here. We'll drop his page. He was awesome, and he shot Adidas. He shot things for the U.S. Army, like all these things. Not saying I want to shoot for the Army. But I assisted him probably 2 to 4 times, and working on set with him, seeing how athletes move, I started to understand, oh, well, if I want to shoot athletes again professionally, not in college, I need to do the following things. For all but one of those shoots, I did it for free. Now, the idea of being pimped by the dollar is this question. If you have the capacity to do something for free, not all of us do, or not all of us can do it often, what are you getting out of it? So scaling is, if I want to get to Lululemon, what are the steps I need? Have I photographed people in athleisure? Have I reached out to local athletes, local stores that have like cool streetwear things? Have I done just literally anything, right? It's hard to jump up because it's a saturated field, but it's separated not only by a good portfolio, a good attitude, but the reps. The reps are important. That scaling is important because you can take a good photo once, but if you can't do it consistently, people aren't going to hire you again. So CNN's next. Here's a little nugget. Production companies are vital. Wherever you live, find a production company and reach out and ask them if there's anything they need help with. Whether they need BTS photos, if you want to start being a PA. Production companies are amazing because agencies will reach out and ask them to capture, work on whatever, and production companies will hire everybody. They'll hire the directors, they'll hire the directors of photography, the camera operators, the grip, the gaff, and sometimes they're like, we need some BTS. And you want to go through that. So what I did before I did to do CNN stuff was I decided I wanted to maybe make a movie or two. I directed my friend's music video, and I was like, man, I don't really know how to direct actually. And so what I ended up doing was I had my agent and myself reach out to production companies, send them emails, and just say, if you need anything. And I asked him, what are the ones that he's worked with before? So we worked with a company called Smuggler. I think they paid me like $200, $250 for the day. And I worked on a couple commercials, a McDonald's, one with Kevin Bacon, and some other stuff. And I started to just get a vibe for how that worked. So then when CNN happened to call and say, hey, have you ever worked on a TV show before? I was like, no. And they were like, have you worked on a set before? I was like, yes. And so I had scaled to the point where I understood as a BTS photographer, it was important for me to be seen and not heard. So I was there to photograph, I was there to be quiet, I was there to have a mirrorless camera, and then over time, as they gained their trust of 5 seasons of United Shades, I started to be able to pull people aside for longer photos come out, the subjects, etc., which has led to commercials like the one you're seeing right here, right now. So scaling requires patience, and remember that we're constantly scaling. But the question of should you do something for free has to start with what is your opportunity cost? Opportunity cost, which we're going to talk about in another video, but we can mention here, is what is the cost of you doing this opportunity? If I want to hire you to take photos of me and all my plants, and I say I want to pay you $12, you'd say no. Because you'd say it's going to take me an hour to drive there, an hour to drive back, 3 hours to edit, and 2 hours to photograph. How much math? What's math is that? 2 plus 3 plus 3. Right? I love that I said that and forgot. I think it's 8, 7 or 8. That means that if I paid you $12, you could instead work a minimum wage job in most cities and make, well, in all cities, and make more money than that. So is the cost of that opportunity just monetary value? No. But if something is costing you that much money, don't do it. Opportunity cost is, what could I be doing instead? It's a way that people that work a lot decide, should I work here or spend time with my family? It's a way that people that are trying to decide between jobs, what they do. Sometimes it's not what it costs, but it means what it can bring you in the future. If you are scaling to eventually work with Nike, and finally the local gym calls back and says, hey, we only have $400, would you photograph this? That's a big deal for you to take. And maybe that's the day you call out of work, right? What you're trying to do is grow your business so that whenever you step into something, you are confident and you can be flexible. Because as you know, as a photographer, as any sort of artist, every single time you do something, it's different and it does not ever go the way you think it will. So, last thing about scaling. How did I get to work with Apple? Part of this I can't tell you, or they'll kill me, rain down for the scaling or whatever. But it started with my fascination with photography and falling in love with the iPhone. When I moved to New York, it was the height of Instagram, man. People were just DMing you, and you'd meet them up on, like, I don't know, Herald Square. You meet them down in Fida. You meet them in Walk the Brooklyn Bridge. So every day, especially in the summer after work, I'd leave and we'd go on these long walks and just take photos every day. And some days I'd post at 8 a.m. and at 5 p.m. And the reason that was happening was I was taking so many photos I was proud of, and I was trying to show how I saw the city. But what I was really doing without realizing was I was scaling my eye and my ability to work with the phone. Sometimes it's great. I mean, it's like all education with children. There's a reason you don't start with algebra, right? Some genius child might get it, but most of us require steps necessary to get to that process. So this video, there's things in here that you can see that are exciting for you. You want to work with CNN, Apple, Lululemon, great. But what I want you to hear me say is that we're always growing and changing. I'm growing and changing. And I'm always doing this calculus. Should you do work for free? Yes, if you can afford it, and yes, if you're scaling toward your goal. So with Apple, after a while, I got pretty good with shooting with the phone. I'm not the best there ever was, but I did have a photo in an iPhone commercial. I did get a photo on the iPhone Instagram, and that started with like learning how to express myself that way. And then over time, people generally recognize good work, but it starts with getting that work in, and also being able to talk about your work, which we'll talk about at a different time. But anyway, be patient, keep scaling, keep growing. You were doing just fine. Love you.